Today, we have with us Dr. Shamsa Sonawala, who will share some very useful tips and insights on good mental health. Dr. Sonawala is an internationally renowned psychiatrist, author, and researcher who is currently a consultant at Jaslok Hospital and Research Center, Mumbai, India. A former assistant professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School and Duke University Medical Center, USA, Dr. Sonawala is also the founder of Transmag Wellbeing Clinic in Mumbai, India. With more than 22 years of extensive psychiatric, clinical, and research experience across India and the United States, Dr. Sonawala is the recipient of several prestigious academic and clinical awards, including Young Investigator Award and the New Investigator Award in 2002 from NARSAD and NCDEU, USA. Distinguished Alumnus Award from Jai Hind College in 2005. Award for Global Leader in Mental Health in 2019, and Outstanding Psychiatrist in 2020 by World Mental Health Congress. Dr. Sonawala has over 100 national and international research publications to her credit. A global speaker at various symposia and workshops, she also writes regularly and is widely cited in Indian print media on mental health issues.
Hello, Gulnaz. Thank you for your kind words of introduction. And I'd like to thank the teams of Health Portfolio and Social Welfare Board of UAE and the UAE National Council for inviting me here. Even if one is situated among the most optimistic and stoic of all individuals, one cannot deny that we are living in unprecedented times. Not only do we have to wear masks, wash our hands, repeatedly sanitize our groceries, but we also have to maintain social distancing, or what I like to call physical distancing, which is against our very grain as human beings. It's been very tough for humanity as a whole. And a parallel health crisis is unfolding even as we speak, a mental health crisis. Indeed, crisis calls are increasing at an alarming rate exponentially, and the already highly prevalent mental illnesses have shot up even further, as we'll see. As we brace ourselves and try to build our physical immunity, it is important for us to also focus on our mental health. Hence, in today's talk, I have divided it into 3 parts. In the first part, we will go through some definitions and concepts. In the second part, we will talk about the various mental health problems. And in the third part, which really is the most relevant to all of us, we will discuss some treatment strategies. What is health? The World Health Organization has defined health as a dynamic state of complete physical, mental, spiritual, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease or infirmity. As we can see, mental health is right here next to physical health, and it is a complete state of well-being. The World Health Organization further defines mental health as a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own capabilities, can cope with the normal stresses of day-to-day life, works productively and fruitfully, and can make a meaningful contribution to his or her society. And we shall just go into this a little bit more in the next slide. Now, we talked about health, we talked about mental health. Well-being as a whole integrates mental health and physical health, mind and body. And this is important because it allows us to have a more holistic approach to disease prevention and to promote our health for better overall health. When we say that I have complete mental well-being, what does that mean? So you have mental well-being if, and these are very interesting sort of concepts here, highlighted by Martin Seligman, who's a psychologist and the father of positive psychology. And he did a lot of research and found these elements. Positive emotion. If you are able to experience happiness, joy, excitement, hope, inspiration, etc., all the good feelings, if you are able to engage in a task, be completely absorbed in a task so that time stops for you, and what some people call as being in the flow of things. If you can have positive relationships with other people, and you can't succeed on your own, and you cannot survive on your own. We are social creatures. So positive relationships, meaning, finding meaning in whatever you do and contributing meaningfully to society with acts of kindness as well, and pursuing accomplishment. A is for accomplishment. Okay, so there's a little mnemonic here: positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. It's called PERMA. So it just gives us an idea that mental health and mental well-being is not just I don't have depression or I don't have anxiety, but a state higher than that. To understand what's going on right now, let us first try and understand very quickly what was the scenario like before COVID came into the picture. So pre-COVID, already mental illnesses were on the rise, and this has been a long neglected area. We haven't, as a global community, given it its due importance. Mental disorders have been on the rise in every single country of the world, across every socioeconomic group, and in both men and women. 1 out of 4 individuals globally suffers from a diagnosable mental illness. Just think about it. If you're sitting on a table with 4 people, where there are 4 people, the other 3 are okay, chances are that it's you who has a mental illness. You may or may not know about it, but that's the reality. In terms of costs, and this is mind-boggling, and again, this is pre-COVID data. As you can see, it's from 2018 and 19. Mental disorders will cost the global economy $16 trillion by the year 2030. We're just not even 10 years away from that. And after COVID and all the stress and anxiety and depression that has come in after that, this is going to rise exponentially. Depression and anxiety are the most common conditions, which we're going to talk about today. A concept here, which is DALYS, D-A-L-Y-S. Depression is associated with the most disability-adjusted life years, which means because of depression, if a person cannot work, productive years of life are lost. It is the #1 illness, not heart disease, not diabetes, not high blood pressure or cholesterol or cancer. It is clinical depression. So in the current scenario, there is an exponential increase in mental health problems with symptoms like fear, stress, loneliness and isolation, illness anxiety. The cases of domestic violence have unfortunately gone up drastically. People are resorting to drugs and substances to cope with these feelings, and in severe cases, suicidal thoughts and even suicidal attempts. A survey in India had found that just a week after lockdown, there was a 20% increase in mental health problems, just 1 week. And these numbers have again risen globally all over the world. There are many, many studies globally. And United Nations declared that mental health needs to be an urgent priority. World Health Organization has warned that mental health crisis and mental health issues are really the next pandemic. While everyone is affected to a greater or lesser extent, the elderly are particularly affected, excuse me, because they would experience isolation and loneliness a lot more. They're not tech savvy, so it's not easy for them to stay in touch or to stay socially connected. Their depression, which they already might be suffering from, can get worse. They feel more physical pain. Children and teenagers, a large component of their lives, which is going to school, has been disrupted. Online schooling, as we know, has its limitations and they miss peer interaction. The single largest problem in this age group has been sleep difficulties in over 50% of children and teenagers. Parents who work from home and also look after their children. They have to juggle full-time work, look after young children, help them with online schooling, and they have their own health issues, fatigue and stress to deal with. And of course, individuals who already have had depression or anxiety or any other mental health condition will experience a worsening. Now, what is anxiety? We need to understand what anxiety is. Anxiety is a feeling of apprehension about a real or a perceived threat, danger, which is in the future. And the threat may be real or not real, overestimating the negative impact of exams. For instance, if you don't do well in an exam, oh, it's going to be terrible. While some anxiety is normal and it propels us to take action, excessive anxiety, which lasts for a long time and interferes with your life, can lead to an anxiety disorder and a whole other set of problems. How does one know if they have anxiety? These are some of the symptoms. So if you're worrying a lot, if you're irritable or on edge all the time, you have difficulty concentrating, your mind goes blank, etc. Lots of symptoms which can signal that there is anxiety, which is excessive. Now, anxiety as a symptom and anxiety disorders are two different things. So what are anxiety disorders? These are disorders which share features of excessive fear, anxiety, and other behavioral problems which persist, as I mentioned. Believe it or not, 1/3 of the world's population, which is about 33%, have an anxiety disorder at some point in their lives. More women are affected than men, twice as many. And these are just some of the types of anxiety disorder, which we don't need to go into details of today. Why is it important to treat anxiety? Because if not treated, there can be a lot of complications. Your insomnia can persist, and we know that can cause a whole host of other health problems. Depression can come in. People start abusing sleeping pills, for example, or other drugs. Lots of physical problems are associated with anxiety, as you may have heard, butterflies in the stomach, or before an event, somebody is having digestive problems, etc. And again, suicide is in very extreme cases if a person is just not able to cope or not treated. To explain depression, I'm going to give you a quick example, a quick patient history. So there was this young boy who was about 21 years old at the time. He came to us at the clinic about a couple of years ago. What had happened is he was studying abroad. He was a student and very bright, excellent, very good student. All of a sudden, his grades started to fall and he started to eat a lot more. He gained a lot of weight. He didn't really like to socialize with his friends anymore. He was not really interested in anything, and had started resorting to drugs. So one day, he was found in his dorm room by his friends when he had overdosed on certain medication. And he was hospitalized briefly over there abroad, and then brought to us for treatment. And we found that he had clinical depression, which was undetected and untreated. And hence, this is what it ended up in. And once we diagnosed and treated him, with combination medication and counseling and RTMS, we'll talk about all these things later. He did so well. After treatment, he followed through regularly. He went back for his studies, completed his studies, and did extremely well. And he's still doing well. So I thought I'd just share this before we get into details of what depression is. Now, before we go into symptoms, it is very important to know that depression, again, is the leading cause of poor health and disability worldwide. With 1/5 of the world's population, we saw with anxiety, it was 1/3 of the world's population who had anxiety disorder. With depression, it is 1/5. And again, these are numbers, mind you, before COVID. Now the numbers, we don't even know the exact numbers. They have just risen exponentially. Again, more women are prone to depression than men because of genetic and hormonal and environmental factors as well. But the good news is depression is very, very treatable. And these are some of the symptoms of major depression. Now, major depression is a subtype of depression which we most commonly see and study. So we've got to differentiate it from normal sadness. When something bad happens, you get some sad news, you're going to be sad. You better be sad because it's normal. You'll be sad and low for some time, and then you'll be fine. You'll be able to come out of it. But a depressed person does not have that control over his symptoms. So he may continue to be depressed for a longer time. Even if he wants to step out of that zone, he can't. Now, for depression diagnosis, we need a lot of symptoms. We cannot just say, okay, you know what, this person is sad, so he's depressed, so let's treat him. No. There's a cluster of symptoms which are present. And, you know, as I say, you know, you can think about it as we go along. So if there's a mnemonic here, SIGECAPS, you see the letters in red, SIGECAPS. It's just a useful short form or a mnemonic for you to remember the symptoms. So in depression, in addition to depressed mood and or decreased interest or enjoyment in activities, the person may not be able to sleep very well or maybe sleeping all the time. The person may feel guilty, self-blame, may be very, very tired all the time, cannot think. Very often people come to us with memory problems. Doctor, I'm just forgetting, especially older people. And because they can't concentrate. Appetite may increase or decrease. You know, people come with weight changes or drastic weight changes. And in severe cases, suicidal thoughts. It's important to treat depression because otherwise it can have dire consequences. In addition to impairing your quality of life, your relationships, your functioning, untreated depression makes you more at risk, more vulnerable to any type of chronic illness. Name an illness, and if there is untreated depression, it's going to make you more vulnerable. So it may make you, for example, make you more likely to get all of these illnesses, but also if you already have any of these other illnesses and you have depression which is not treated, the outcome can be worse. So for example, two individuals with heart disease, both have depression, one takes treatment, the other doesn't. The one who doesn't take treatment will have a worse outcome. Yeah, some complications, and even a lifespan can get impacted. And there's a lot of research on this area. And suicide, as we know, is a leading cause of death worldwide. Vast majority of individuals who go through with suicide are found to be depressed. Now, you may ask me why, what causes anxiety and depression? Really, what causes these disorders? Because you can't see it, you can't measure it. That's why it's so mysterious. Just as diabetes can be caused by imbalances in the pancreas, pancreatic hormones, so also anxiety and depression can be caused by imbalances in the brain's neurochemicals, neurotransmitters. You may have heard about serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine. So imbalances can cause this. And people who are genetically vulnerable, which means if depression runs in families, then if individuals are vulnerable, they are more likely to develop these imbalances. Any kind of trauma, any kind of severely adverse experiences, hormonal imbalances, again, especially in women, and certain medical illnesses may be associated with depression and anxiety. So thyroid disorders, vitamin B12 deficiency, etc. But both have to be taken care of. Talking a little bit about stigma. So what is stigma? The individual, so basically it's a negative stereotype. The individual is viewed negatively. Oh, he or she has this particular illness or a symptom. Individual is viewed negatively due to a certain characteristic, which is thought to be a disadvantage. It may or may not be a disadvantage, but society perceives it to be a disadvantage. And unfortunately, it is still prevalent for people with mental illness. Having said that, I must say that over the years, I have seen it reduce slowly but surely, and we must keep on working towards that. Stigma can lead to discrimination, and this is why it is so important. So all these are problems. If there is stigma, a person may not want to seek help. There could be health insurance problems. The person may start believing, just because everyone's saying you won't succeed, so maybe I really can't succeed, right? So there is this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy which can set in. Now, how does one cope with stigma? So you educate yourself, learn about the illness. Go ahead and get treatment. Don't let all this stop you, right? Don't have any self-doubt. Don't be ashamed. Believe me, one day stigma is going to go away completely. It has to. We are moving in that direction. Stay connected with people. And remember, you just have an illness. You are not your illness, okay? You are much, much more than that. And most importantly, speak out. So how does one manage? I'm going to try and insert a little bit of Hindi here. So how does one manage? Well, first of all, what are the warning signs of mental illness? Okay, what are the red flags? Mental illness की पहचान क्या है? कैसे आपको समझेगा कि हमें कुछ psychological बीमारी हो सकती है? If there are persistent sleep or appetite changes, अगर नींद में problem है, खाने पीने में appetite में problem है, अगर mood continuously उदास रहता है या बहुत ज़्यादा shift होता है up down, अगर गुस्सा आता है, irritability, angry, कोई बिना वजह आप गुस्सा हो जाते हो, छोटी छोटी बातों में, loss of interest, अगर कोई चीज़ में interest नहीं रहता है आपका, जो आप enjoy करते थे पहले, लोगों को मिलना, बातें करना, आप बिल्कुल enjoy नहीं करते और अपने शेल में जैसे आप बैठे रहना चाहते हैं और हर दिन आपको सब कुछ करने में बहुत तकलीफ होती है, सब चीज़ स्लो होती है, स्कूल, वर्क, सेल्फ केयर, मेमोरी या कंसंट्रेशन सही नहीं रहता है और ऐसे लगता है जीकर क्या फायदा, हम मर जाएं तो बेटर है। ये तो बहुत गंभीर वार्निंग साइन है और आपको तुरंत प्रोफेशनल हेल्प लेनी चाहिए। What are some of the other treatment options? Okay, so these are some of the other, this is the list of some of the other treatment options and I'm going to go over them in a moment. So there are certain lifestyle modifications. आप अपनी जो lifestyle है उसमें थोड़े बदलाव ला सकते हैं ताकि आप ये mental illness से आप protected रहें और आप अगर कुछ हुआ है तो आप जल्दी बाहर आ जाएं उससे। तो अगर बहुत माइल्ड है तो दवाई वगैरह की शायद जरूर नहीं है अगर आप जल्दी एक्शन लेते हैं तो पहली बात है the eye does not see what the mind does not know. तो पहली बात है आपको अवेयर रहना चाहिए, मेरे माइंड में, मेरे ब्रेन में क्या चल रहा है, अगर मैं क्या ज्यादा चिंता कर रहा हूँ या कर रही हूँ, मैं उदास रह रही हूँ, मैंने अभी गुस्सा किया इस पर, मैं चिढ़ जा रही हूँ, राइट? तो ये सब हमें अवेयर रहना है और अगर ऐसे ज्यादा होता है तो आप लिखिए जर्नल में, अच्छा मॉनिटर करने का तरीका है। स्ट्रेस रिडक्शन, जो स्ट्रेस अगर बाहर से आप स्ट्रेस लेते हैं अगर बहुत ज्यादा तो वो स्ट्रेस आप ना लें, अगर आपको अपने टास्क जो है, काम वगैरह जो है थोड़ा सा कम कर दें। ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, डिसकंटिन्यू द टॉक्सिन्स, ओके, स्मोकिंग, अल्कोहल, ड्रग्स और सब्सटेंसेस ऑफ अब्यूज और कैफीन। आप बहुत ज्यादा चाय न लें बिकॉज उससे आपको बहुत एंजाइटी हो सकती है and alcohol and smoking is what people resort to for self treatment, so don't do that. Sleeping pills अगर आप लेते हैं जो addictive है, okay, Campos वगैरह जैसे old benzodiazepine group of pills, not antidepressants, उसे आप बंद करें because उससे बहुत ज्यादा नुकसान हो सकता है। हम क्वेश्चन आंसर में इसके बारे में ज्यादा बात कर सकते हैं। I cannot emphasize, अगर आप एक मैसेज ले जा सकते हैं ये टॉक से तो वो है आप अच्छी खासी आप नींद करिए, मतलब बहुत ज्यादा नहीं लेकिन adequate sleep, ओके। आप आइडियली मेंटेन अ स्लीप शेड्यूल, टाइम पर आप रेस्ट लीजिए, टाइम पर उठिए, तो एंड सम प्रैक्टिस सम स्लीप हाइजीन। Sleep hygiene is basically rules which say that 1 hour before you go to sleep, switch off all gadgets because blue light interferes with sleep. Keep a fixed time for sleep. Don't have very heavy meals before sleep. Don't watch any thriller or read any stimulating material which can disturb you, or news. Limit social media. Limit news, watching the news. Exercise has been found to be very, very useful. So aerobic exercise, which is cardio, whatever kind of exercise that you'd like to do, because it increases our endorphins, the happy chemicals. Eat well, so pani pijiye enough. We are about more than 70% water. If you drink less water, you are going to be more likely to feel jittery and anxious and even low. Relaxation techniques. This is very important, very useful, very calming. So techniques like mindfulness, which again we can talk about in the discussion. So mindfulness, focusing on the here and now, focusing on your breath. Yoga helps a lot. Meditation is wonderful. So it can really act as a calming agent. And of course, speak to someone. You don't have to always go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but you can even first speak to a family member or a good friend. And for this pandemic, what are the key points? Okay, so these are some of the things, some of these we've gone over already. These things will help one to stay psychologically protected, mentally protected from really having these crises. A couple of things I want to highlight here is, even though we are in the midst of a pandemic, find things to laugh about. Laughter makes light of things, and research has shown that it helps increase your immunity, it relaxes you. You cannot be happy and sad at the very same moment. So laugh often, and the brain cannot differentiate between real laughter and false laughter, which is why laugh anyway, smile anyway, right? It's going to help you. It doesn't mean you're minimizing any problem, right? But you're accepting it and you're trying to do something about it, and feel relaxed. Altruism is the practice of helping others, a larger good. And research has shown that, when you do things like volunteer, for example, you feel good. It helps the other people, but you also benefit in the process. And another tip would be to practice gratitude. I cannot emphasize this enough. An attitude of gratitude can go a long way in building your psychological health, your immunity. You can even keep a little journal, write down 3 to 5 things you are grateful for every day, because we tend to forget. So if you feel that'll help you, you can always try that out. I want to spend a moment on medication. It is important to note that psychiatric medications are not addictive. Barring those few medications which we barely even use and which are reserved for emergencies, when people use them injudiciously and take pills on their own, that's when they cause a problem. So antidepressant medication are not addictive. Some of the anti-anxiety medications are also not addictive. Mood stabilizers are not addictive. Side effects are usually mild and will decrease over time. Okay, but it has to be titrated, started in a particular manner and changed in a particular manner by a psychiatrist, so that you experience minimal side effects. And you must complete the course, not just take it, for a week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months. Complete the course. Remember that the beneficial effects will take time. Okay, so one needs to be patient. Just like you won't stop diabetes medication when your sugar is just about okay, or medication for high blood pressure when your BP is fine. So also this needs a full course of treatment. And this is just a newer treatment, which I thought I'd mention. It's called repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, so this is the newest state of the art, where if people don't respond to medication or are having a lot of side effects, this technique can also be used, where a magnetic field is used to stimulate brain cells, and a person can, a depression can improve tremendously. If you already have anxiety or depression, be prepared, know that your symptoms can get worse. Be in touch with your doctor. This is not the time to stop your medication, and continue monitoring. So to summarize, we are living in unprecedented times and headed towards an uncertain future, trying to manage in the new normal, while most of us are managing to a more or less okay extent, and anxieties, and getting by with only a few depression or anxiety symptoms now and then, like the global community, mental health problems per se are on the rise. And certain populations are affected more severely, as we saw earlier. The key is to recognize the symptoms early and take appropriate professional treatment. Watch out for red flags and know that all these conditions today are very treatable. It's not like what it used to be even 10 years ago. There's more and more research and development. And while we cannot control what happens to us, we can certainly control how we react to the situation. So that is what we need to work on. Certain coping mechanisms and a healthy lifestyle can protect us and can increase our overall immunity, both physical and emotional. And so by following some of these strategies, we can not only survive this pandemic, but also flourish in a way and emerge stronger from it. And let us all try and replace anxiety and depression with hope and optimism.
Thank you for attending. Shabba khair. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.